Please, can you take me home?
Hey, little one, are you lost?
The bell above the door of
Please, can you
Silverline
take me
Cafe
home?
rang softly
Hey,
as
little
another
man, are you
customer
lost?
stepped out into the night. Alara Whitmore barely looked up. Her hands were busy wiping the counter for the third time, even though it was already clean. The late shift always did this to her, made her tired in a way sleep never fully fixed. It was past 10 in the evening. The dinner rush had come and gone, leaving behind empty plates, half-drunk coffee cups, and the low hum of exhaustion that settled into the walls. The cafe smelled of fried eggs, warm bread, and old vinyl seats that had soaked up years of spilled drinks and quiet conversations. Alara rolled her shoulders, trying to ease the ache in her back. Her feet throbbed inside her worn sneakers. Tips tonight had been bad. Too many people paying with cards, too many polite smiles instead of cash. She was already counting groceries in her head, subtracting prices, wondering what could wait until next week. "Refill?" she asked automatically, lifting the coffee pot toward a booth near the window. No answer. She frowned and finally looked up. That was when she saw him. He stood near the counter, hands folded neatly in front of him, like a child waiting to be called on in class. He was small, maybe 8 years old, with smooth dark hair combed carefully to the side. His clothes were clean and well-fitted, not flashy, but expensive in a quiet way. The kind of clothes that didn't wrinkle easily and didn't come from discount racks. He didn't look lost. He looked careful. Alara set the coffee pot down slowly. "Hey there," she said gently. "Are you waiting for someone?" The boy lifted his head and met her eyes. His gaze was calm, steady, and far too serious for someone his age. "Yes, miss," he said. His voice was soft and polite, each word chosen carefully. "I was waiting for you." That made her pause. "For me?" He nodded once. Alara glanced around the cafe. Only 2 other customers remained, a couple murmuring to each other in a corner booth, and a man sitting alone near the back, half hidden by shadows. No parents. No guardian rushing in with an apology. She leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Min-jae Han." "And where's your family, Min-jae?" "They're busy," he said simply. That answer didn't sit right, but Alara didn't push. Kids from wealthy homes often had busy parents, drivers, schedules that didn't include bedtime stories. She'd seen it before. She offered him a small smile. "Are you hungry?" "I already ate," he replied quickly. "Thank you." He meant it. She could tell. Some kids said thank you because they were taught to. Min-jae said it like the word mattered. Alara wiped her hands on her apron. "So why were you waiting for me?" He hesitated. Just for a second. His fingers twisted together, slow and tight, like he was holding onto something invisible. Then he asked the question. "Can you walk me home?" The words were quiet, almost careful, but they landed hard. Alara blinked. Of all the things she expected, that wasn't one of them. "Walk you home?" "Yes," Min-jae said. "It's dark." She followed his gaze to the cafe windows. Outside, the street glowed with dull yellow lights. Neon signs buzzed. Cars passed now and then, their headlights cutting through the night. Normal. Busy. Not the kind of place an 8-year-old should be navigating alone. "Where do you live?" she asked. "Not far," he said. "Just a few streets." Alara straightened. "Does your family know you're here?" "Yes." That answer came too fast. She studied him more closely now. The way he stood too still. The way he watched the door every few seconds. The way his shoulders tightened when footsteps passed outside. "You shouldn't be walking alone at night," she said gently. "I know," he replied. "Then why are you?" His lips pressed together. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. "They don't like me being alone." Alara felt a small chill slide down her spine. "Who doesn't?" He shrugged, a careful, practiced motion. "Bad men." She let out a soft laugh, hoping to ease the tension. "There are bad men everywhere, kiddo. You just stay close to the lights." Min-jae looked at her again, really looked at her. His eyes were dark and serious. "These ones follow," he said. Her smile froze. Alara had grown up learning how to read streets, how to sense when something wasn't right. It was a skill you picked up when danger didn't announce itself. Her instincts stirred now, uneasy and alert. She glanced toward the back of the cafe without meaning to. The man in the shadowed booth hadn't moved. He sat with his coat still on, posture relaxed, eyes fixed not on his coffee, but on Min-jae. Alara felt her stomach tighten. She looked back at the boy. "I finish work in about 11 minutes, she said slowly. "If your family is okay with it, I can walk you to the corner." Just the corner. Min-jae's face changed instantly. His eyes widened. His shoulders loosened. The careful mask slipped, just a little, and pure relief shone through. "Thank you," he said, and this time, the words trembled. "Thank you so much." Elara swallowed. "You're welcome." She gestured toward a stool. "You can sit there while I close up." He climbed onto it obediently, folding his hands in his lap again. Every few seconds, he glanced toward the door. Elara moved through the last of her duties on autopilot. She wiped counters, stacked cups, cashed out the register. All the while, she was aware of the boy behind her, and the man in the shadows. The man's gaze never left them. When the couple paid and left, the cafe grew quieter. Too quiet. Elara felt it then, that sense of being watched. Not casually. Intentionally. She didn't look back again. When she finally untied her apron, Min-jae slid off the stool and stood beside her, close enough that his sleeve brushed hers. "Ready?" she asked. He nodded. As they walked toward the door, Elara caught one last glimpse of the man in the booth. He lifted his cup slowly, eyes sharp, unreadable. The bell rang as Elara and Min-jae stepped into the night. The door closed behind them, and the man in the cafe stood up. The door of Silverline Cafe closed behind them with a soft click, sealing off the warmth and noise inside. The night air met Elara Whitmore's face immediately, cool, heavy, carrying the mixed smells of car exhaust, street food, and damp pavement. Busan at night never truly slept. It only slowed down enough to watch itself breathe. Neon signs flickered above the street, painting the sidewalk in soft reds and blues. A convenience store across the road buzzed with fluorescent light. Somewhere nearby, a bus hissed as it pulled away, its sound fading into the steady hum of traffic. Elara slipped her hands into the pockets of her jacket and looked down at Min-jae. "All right," she said lightly. "Let's go." He nodded and stepped closer to her side, so close his arm brushed against hers. Not accidentally. Deliberately. She noticed immediately. Most children his age walked ahead, kicked stones, asked questions, complained about being tired. Min-jae did none of that. He stayed pressed to her, his small steps perfectly matched to her pace, as if he had learned long ago that distance was dangerous. They started down the sidewalk, the cafe's light shrinking behind them. "So," Elara said gently, trying to sound casual, "you said your place isn't far." "It's not," Min-jae replied. 5 streets. "That's a good walk," she said. "You do it often?" "No." She glanced at him. "First time." He hesitated. "First time alone." That word again. Alone. Elara felt a familiar tightening in her chest. She kept her eyes forward and her pace steady. "Do your parents usually walk with you?" "Yes." "Tonight they couldn't?" "They were busy," he repeated. His answer was calm, but his fingers were tight where they curled into the hem of her jacket. He didn't look up at buildings or signs. He watched reflections in windows. Dark spaces between parked cars. Doorways. Elara noticed all of it. They passed under a streetlight, its glow warm and yellow. Min-jae relaxed slightly beneath it, his shoulders lowering just a bit. When they moved beyond it, into a stretch of dimmer road, he stiffened again. "You okay?" she asked softly. "Yes," he said. Then, after a pause, "You walk fast." She smiled faintly. "Habit." Another block passed. The city noise softened here. Fewer cars. Fewer voices. The sidewalk narrowed, buildings closer together, shadows deeper. Min-jae moved even closer. "Elara?" he asked. "Yeah. They don't like me being alone." There it was again. She kept her voice calm. "You mentioned that. Why?" He kicked a small pebble ahead of them, watching it bounce once before rolling into a drain. "Because it's easier." "Easier for who?" "For them." Elara slowed just slightly, enough to glance down at him. "Who is them, Min-jae?" He didn't answer right away. They passed another streetlight. The hum of electricity overhead buzzed softly. Somewhere far away, a siren wailed and then stopped. "Bad men," he said finally. Elara exhaled through her nose, a careful breath. "Bad men where?" "At school. Around your house." "Everywhere," he said, then corrected himself. "Not everywhere. Just behind." Her steps didn't falter. "Behind us?" she asked gently. Min-jae nodded once. Elara didn't turn around. She didn't need to. The sensation had already crept up her spine, a pressure between her shoulders, that old warning from a childhood spent learning which footsteps mattered and which didn't. These footsteps mattered. Slow, even, unhurried. They matched her pace perfectly. Alara adjusted her grip on Minjae's shoulder, keeping her hand light but firm. Sometimes, she said evenly, it just feels like someone's behind us, even when they're not. This time they are, Minjae said. His voice wasn't scared. It was certain. They crossed another intersection. The light changed lazily, the crosswalk empty except for them. Alara listened carefully now. The footsteps didn't rush to catch up. They didn't fall back. They stayed. One step for every step she took. Alara's heart beat a little faster, but she kept her breathing steady. Panic helped no one, especially not a child. You're doing great, she said softly. Minjae's fingers curled into her sleeve. You're not scared. I am, she said honestly. But being scared doesn't mean we stop walking. That seemed to comfort him. The street ahead grew darker. Fewer signs. One of the streetlights flickered, then went out completely, leaving a stretch of sidewalk washed in shadow. The footsteps behind them stopped. Relief rushed through Alara, sharp and sudden, before instinct slammed it down. Footsteps didn't just stop. They stopped because they didn't need to follow anymore. Alara slowed, her eyes scanning ahead without looking obvious. The street was quieter now, the city's noise pulled back like a tide. No people. No open shops. Just parked cars and closed doors. Minjae's breathing changed. Faster. Shallower. Alara, he whispered. I know, she murmured. A low sound reached her ears then. Not footsteps, but something heavier. An engine. She tightened her hand on Minjae's shoulder and guided him closer to the building side of the sidewalk, her body instinctively positioning itself between him and the road. Keep walking, she said calmly. Just like this. The engine sound grew louder. Minjae stumbled slightly, and Alara steadied him without breaking stride. She felt the tremor in his arm now, the fear finally breaking through his careful calm. Almost there, she said, even though she didn't know if it was true. The street seemed to narrow further ahead, swallowed by darkness. Alara didn't look back. Looking back meant confirming what her instincts already knew. It meant acknowledging the thing that hunted. She focused instead on the sound of Minjae's shoes against the pavement, on the rhythm of their steps, on keeping her voice steady, her body calm. The night watched them, and whatever followed had learned their pace perfectly. The black sedan appeared without warning. One moment, the street ahead was empty, dark, quiet, waiting. The next, the car rolled out smoothly from a side road and stopped directly in front of them, cutting off the sidewalk as if it had always been there. The engine stayed on, low and steady, a soft purr that sounded confident. Controlled. Alara stopped walking. Minjae stopped with her. The headlights remained off, but the shape of the car was unmistakable. Long polished. Expensive. The kind of vehicle that didn't belong to someone who worried about scratches or parking tickets. Alara felt Minjae's grip tighten on her sleeve. The rear door of the sedan opened. Then the front door. Two men stepped out. They were dressed neatly, not in street clothes, not in anything that suggested hurry or struggle. Dark coats, clean shoes, hands visible. Calm. Too calm. One of them adjusted his cuff as he moved, like this was just another stop on a long list of errands. Alara's heart began to pound. She took a step back without thinking, drawing Minjae with her. Her body shifted automatically, placing herself between the boy and the men. Her arm came around him, firm and protective. Evening, one of the men said. His voice was smooth, polite, with a slight accent. His smile followed a second later. It didn't reach his eyes. Alara swallowed. Good evening. The second man said nothing. He moved slightly to the side, positioning himself so that the space behind them no longer felt open. Not trapped. Not yet. But narrowing. The first man looked past Alara, his gaze settling on Minjae. His eyes sharpened with interest. There you are, he said lightly. We've been looking for you. Minjae's fingers dug into Alara's jacket. She tightened her arm around him. You've got the wrong kid, she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. We're just walking home. The man chuckled softly. No, miss. We don't think we do. The second man took one step closer. Alara raised her free hand instinctively, palm out. Stop. They stopped. That alone terrified her. People who stopped when told to were not afraid of consequences. They were confident in control. Please, Alara said. He's just a child. That's exactly why we're here, the first man replied. The words landed cold. Minjae's breathing grew shallow behind her. She felt his forehead press against her back, small and trembling. You don't need to be involved in this, the man continued calmly. We'll take the boy, and you can go back to your night. No, Alara said. The word came out stronger than she expected. The man's smile faded just a little. Miss. No, she repeated. I'm not stepping aside. The second man shifted his weight. His hand moved slightly, not toward a weapon, but toward Alara. Testing distance. Timing. Alara stepped back again, pressing Minjae fully behind her legs. She bent slightly, widening her stance, bracing herself like she had been taught years ago when survival meant positioning your body before your fear. You're not taking him, she said. The first man studied her more closely now. You don't understand what you're standing in front of. Then explain it, Alara snapped. Because all I see are two grown men cornering a child. The man sighed, like she was being unreasonable. We know exactly who he is. Alara's stomach dropped. Minjae let out a small sound, a broken breath. The man's eyes flicked down to the boy again. Minjae Han, he said smoothly. You've been very hard to reach tonight. Alara felt the boy stiffen completely. Her pulse roared in her ears. You know his name, she said quietly. Yes, the man replied. We know much more than that. The second man stepped closer again. Time is important, he said, his voice flat. Please step aside. Alara shook her head. No. Her heart was racing now, but her feet stayed planted. I have money, she blurted, desperate. Not much, but if that's what this is. The man laughed softly. We don't want your money. Then what do you want? She demanded. The man's smile thinned. We want what belongs to someone else. Minjae's hands twisted into the fabric of her jacket. Alara, he whispered, his voice cracking. Please don't let them. She lowered her head slightly so he could hear her. I've got you, she said. I promise. The words felt thin against the weight of the moment, but she meant them with everything she had. The second man moved again, faster this time, closing the space. Alara reacted without thinking. She turned fully, wrapping both arms around Minjae and pulling him tight against her chest, her back to the men. She bent her knees, lowering her center of gravity, shielding him completely. You will have to go through me, she said, her voice shaking but loud. And I will scream. The street around them was silent. The man stopped. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the first man spoke again, his tone different now. Sharper. Less patient. You really shouldn't do that. Why? Alara demanded. Because someone important might get angry? Yes, the man said simply. Very angry. She laughed, short and breathless. Then let him. The man's eyes hardened. You don't understand. He already knows. Alara's breath caught. He knows, she echoed. The man nodded once. That his son is here. That someone interfered. The word son rang in her ears, but she pushed it aside. This was not the time to unravel that truth. The second man glanced down the street, then back at her. Last chance, he said. Alara shook her head. I won't move, she said. Not for you. Not for anyone. The air felt tight now, stretched thin like a wire about to snap. Alara could hear her own heartbeat. Minjae's breathing against her chest. The soft hum of the sedan's engine. The men exchanged a look. The first man lifted his hand slightly, and the night seemed to hold its breath. Something was about to break. Something was coming, and Alara stood between it and a child she had promised to protect. The night changed without warning. It was not loud at first. There were no sirens, no shouted orders, no flashing lights. Just a low, steady sound that slipped into the street like a breath being held too long. An engine. Then another. Then another. Alara felt it before she saw it. The shift in the air, the way tension suddenly leaned in a different direction. The two men in front of her noticed it too. Their confidence flickered, just for a moment. From the far end of the street, a line of luxury sedans rolled into view. Black. Identical. Headlights dimmed, engines barely audible. They moved with perfect spacing, smooth and controlled, as if the road itself had been cleared for them long before tonight. One car stopped. Then another. Then a third. They did not block the street randomly. They positioned themselves with purpose, closing every angle, sealing the night into something smaller and tighter. Doors opened. Men stepped out. They wore dark suits, tailored and clean, their movements precise and silent. There was no rush in them, no panic. Each man took his place with calm efficiency, spreading out across the street, forming a quiet wall. Alara felt Minjae's grip loosen slightly. Not from fear. From relief. The two men who had trapped them stiffened. Their shoulders squared, their eyes darted from one car to the next. They did not smile now. They did not speak. They knew. The first sedan's rear door opened last. A tall man stepped out. He wore a black coat that moved gently with the night breeze, as if the air itself made room for him. His hair was dark, pulled back neatly, not a strand out of place. His face was calm, too calm, carved from discipline and control. He did not hurry. He did not scan the scene. He already understood it. The men in suits parted for him without a word. Alara felt the weight of his presence press into the street like gravity. The city noise faded. Even the hum of engines seemed to lower, as if unwilling to interrupt. The tall man stopped a few steps away. His eyes moved first, not to Alara, not to the kidnappers, but to the boy behind her, to Minjae. Something changed in his expression then. It was subtle, quick, but unmistakable. The cold authority sharpened into something deeper. Protective. Absolute. He spoke. "Step away from my son." His voice was calm, even quiet. He did not raise it. He did not need to. The words landed like a command carved in stone. The first man stumbled back half a step. "Sir, we." The tall man lifted one hand. That was all. The men in suits moved instantly. Two of them grabbed the kidnappers, arms locking, grips firm and final. There was no struggle. No shouting. Just a sudden understanding that resistance was pointless. The first man's face drained of color. "Please," he said quickly, his confidence gone. "There's been a misunderstanding." "There has not," the tall man replied. His gaze never left Minjae. The kidnappers were pulled back toward the waiting cars, their feet scraping lightly against the pavement. Their voices dropped into hurried apologies, words tumbling over each other, but none of it mattered. The doors opened. The men were pushed inside. The doors closed. The sedans pulled away as smoothly as they had arrived, disappearing into the night as if the street itself swallowed them whole. No one screamed. No one asked questions. They were simply gone. The silence that followed was heavy. Alara's knees nearly gave out. She stayed standing only because Minjae was still pressed against her, his small body warm and real and alive. Her arms loosened slightly, though she did not step away. The tall man finally looked at her. His gaze was sharp, assessing, stripping away surface and finding truth beneath it. Alara felt seen in a way that made her breath catch. Not judged. Measured. "You're hurt?" he asked. His voice was different now. Still controlled, but gentler. Human. Alara shook her head. She didn't trust her voice to work. Minjae stepped out from behind her legs. "Father," he said simply. The word cut through the night. Alara turned slowly, her heart pounding. "Father." The tall man knelt slightly, bringing himself closer to Minjae's height. His hand rested lightly on the boy's shoulder. "I told you not to walk alone," he said quietly. Minjae nodded. "I asked for help." The man's eyes flicked to Alara again. "This is Miss Alara," Minjae said, pride creeping into his voice. "She walked me home." The tall man studied her more closely now. Not like a stranger. Not like a threat. Like a complication. "Thank you," he said. The word carried weight. Not polite gratitude. Something heavier. Something that came with consequence. Alara finally found her voice. "He was scared," she said. "I couldn't leave him." Something flickered in the man's eyes. Respect. Surprise. Minjae reached for Alara's hand again. "Can she come with us?" he asked. "Just to the gate." The tall man hesitated. It was brief, but Alara saw it. Calculation. Risk. Decision. Then he nodded once. Just to the gate. That single nod felt final. The street slowly returned to life around them. A car passed at the far end. A window opened somewhere above. The city breathed again, unaware of what had just been erased from it. As they turned toward the waiting car, Alara glanced back once. The place where the kidnappers had stood was empty. Clean. Ordinary. As if danger had never existed. Minjae squeezed her hand, his voice soft but steady. "You didn't let them take me." Alara swallowed. No. She didn't know who his father truly was. She didn't know what kind of world she had just brushed against. But she knew one thing. The night had shifted, and nothing would ever be the same again. Han Tae-suk did not move right away. After the street swallowed the black sedans and the night slowly returned to itself, he remained standing where he was, one hand still resting on Minjae's shoulder. His presence felt solid, unshakable, like something the world had learned not to argue with. His eyes shifted back to Alara. "You said you're not hurt," he said. It was not a question. Alara shook her head again. "I'm fine." He didn't accept that immediately. His gaze moved over her carefully, taking in her posture, the way she favored one foot, the faint tremor she hadn't fully controlled yet. He noticed everything. That much was clear. "Turn around," he said calmly. Alara hesitated. Then she did. He checked her arms first, then her shoulders, never touching her skin directly, only hovering close enough to see. His attention was focused, precise, like a man used to assessing damage after violence. When he was satisfied, he nodded once. "No injuries," he said. "That's good." Minjae looked up at her, eyes wide and shining. "I told you she's brave," he said. Alara managed a small smile. "I just didn't want you to be scared." "I was scared," Minjae admitted. "But not alone." Han Tae-suk's jaw tightened slightly. He looked at his son, then back at Alara. "You did what my men failed to do," he said. "You stayed." The words settled heavily in the air. "I couldn't walk away," Alara replied quietly. He asked for help. Minjae straightened at that, pride clear on his face. He stepped closer to her again, slipping his small hand into hers like it belonged there. "This is Miss Alara," he said again, louder this time, as if making sure everyone heard. "She walked me home." Tae-suk studied that small gesture carefully. His son did not touch people easily. Alara could feel the weight of that realization in the way the man's gaze sharpened. "Thank you," Tae-suk said again. This time, the gratitude carried more than words. It felt deliberate, measured, like something he would remember. Alara swallowed. "You're welcome." Minjae tugged gently at her hand. "Can she come with us?" he asked. "Just until the gate." Tae-suk looked down at his son, then at the waiting cars. He considered the street, the shadows, the invisible eyes that might still be watching. He looked back at Alara. She expected refusal. Instead, he said, "Yes." Relief softened Minjae's shoulders immediately. Alara hesitated. "I don't want to intrude." "You won't," Tae-suk said. "Just to the gate." She nodded. "Okay." The nearest sedan's door opened without a sound. One of the suited men gestured respectfully. "Please." Alara stepped back instinctively. She had never been inside a car like this. The interior smelled faintly of leather and something cleaner. Money, maybe. Control. Minjae climbed in first, then looked at her expectantly. She followed. The door closed softly, sealing the night outside. As the car pulled away, Alara watched the city slide past the tinted windows. Streetlights blurred into lines of gold. Ordinary people walked sidewalks, laughed, argued, lived their lives unaware of how close something terrible had been. Minjae leaned against her side, relaxed now, his earlier tension gone. Han Tae-suk sat across from them, his posture straight, his attention split between the road ahead and the child beside her. "You live nearby?" he asked Alara. "Yes," she said. "Not far from the cafe." "You work nights?" "Yes." He nodded slightly, storing the information. They drove in silence for a while. The streets changed gradually, fewer shops, wider roads, higher walls. Cameras appeared on lampposts. Gates replaced sidewalks. Alara felt it then. They were leaving the city she knew. The car slowed. Another gate opened smoothly ahead, steel sliding aside with quiet precision. The sedan passed through, followed by others. Alara's breath caught. The compound rose around them, massive and controlled. Tall walls, reinforced gates, discreet cameras tracking movement without obvious motion. There were no guards standing openly, but she felt eyes everywhere. The car came to a stop inside. Minjae looked pleased. "We're home." The word landed differently now. Alara stepped out slowly, her heart pounding. The air here felt heavier, quieter. Protected. Han Tae-suk exited last. He stood beside his son, looking over the grounds with calm ownership. "This is the gate," Minjae said, turning to Alara. "Thank you for coming." She smiled. "You're safe now." "Yes," he said confidently. Then added, "Because you came." Tae-suk looked at her again, longer this time. "My son trusts you," he said. "That is not common." Alara shifted uncomfortably. "He was just scared." "So are most people," Tae-suk replied. "They just hide it better." Silence settled between them. "You can go now," he said. "A driver will take you back." Alara nodded. "Thank you." As she turned to leave, Minjae hugged her suddenly, quick and tight. "Good night," he said. She hugged him back, surprised by the ache in her chest. "Good night, Minjae." She walked back toward the waiting car, her mind racing. Behind her, the gate closed silently. Alara sat inside the sedan, staring out at the walls as they pulled away. Only then did it fully sink in. This was not just wealth. This was power, and she had just stepped into its orbit. The sedan moved deeper into the estate, gliding along a wide, smooth road that curved gently through manicured grounds. Tall trees lined the path, their leaves barely stirring. Everything felt controlled, too quiet, too ordered, like noise itself had been trained to behave. Alara sat still, hands folded in her lap, watching the world pass through tinted glass. The farther they went, the more the city disappeared. No neon signs, no shop windows, no stray voices drifting through the night. Just space, walls, and silence. They passed another gate, then another. Each one opened before the car reached it and closed behind them without a sound. Cameras tracked the vehicle with quiet precision, small black lenses mounted discreetly into stone pillars and steel beams. Alara felt their presence, even when she couldn't see them directly. Minjae leaned forward slightly, peering out the window with casual interest. "The lights are new," he said. "They changed them last week." Alara looked at him in surprise. "Did they?" He nodded. "The old ones made too many shadows." The way he said it, matter-of-fact, unconcerned, sent a strange chill through her. This was normal to him. Gates, cameras, guarded silence. He spoke about security the way other children talked about playgrounds. The car finally slowed and stopped in front of a large structure built from stone and glass. It wasn't flashy. No towering columns or bright lights. It was low, wide, and solid, designed more for strength than beauty. The door opened. Han Tae-suk stepped out first, then turned and offered his hand to Minjae. The boy took it easily, hopping down with practiced confidence. Alara followed more carefully. The ground beneath her feet felt too clean, too deliberate. Even the air smelled different, cool, faintly metallic, untouched by the mess of the city. "This way," Tae-suk said. They walked toward the entrance. No guards stood openly at the door, but Alara felt them anyway. Movement at the edges of her vision. Shapes behind tinted glass. Presence without display. Inside, the silence deepened. The interior was spacious and minimalist. Polished floors reflected soft, overhead lighting. Art hung on the walls, abstract, restrained, expensive without trying to be impressive. Everything was immaculate. Minjae slipped off his shoes without being told and padded across the floor. "I'll show you," he said, pointing toward a long hallway. "There's a fish pond inside." Alara blinked. "Inside?" "Yes," he said, already moving ahead. "They're quiet fish." She almost smiled. Han Tae-suk watched his son go, then turned his attention back to her. "You shouldn't be here," he said calmly. Alara stiffened. "I can leave." "That's not what I meant," he replied. "You shouldn't have been put in this position." She hesitated. "I didn't think walking a child home would." "Most people wouldn't have done it," he said. "They would have called someone, or walked away." She met his gaze. He asked for help. Something unreadable crossed his face. "You need to understand something," Tae-suk said. "What you saw tonight was controlled. It won't always be." Alara swallowed. "Those men were not the worst kind," he finished. "They were careful. That makes them dangerous." She folded her arms, suddenly aware of how small she felt inside this place. Why would anyone want to take him? Tae-suk didn't answer right away. He gestured for her to follow him a few steps farther into the hall, stopping near a wide window that looked out onto the grounds. "My world attracts attention," he said finally. "Some people believe the fastest way to reach me is through my son." Alara's chest tightened. "That's horrible." "Yes," he said simply. Minjae's laughter echoed faintly from somewhere down the hall. The sound was light, normal, like any child enjoying something small. "That's why you are a risk now," Tae-suk continued. "Anyone who steps between him and harm becomes visible." Alara turned to him. "Are you saying I'm in danger?" "I'm saying danger notices people like you," he replied. The words settled heavily between them. "You should not return to the cafe," he said next. Alara frowned. "What? It's not safe." "That's my job," she said quickly. "I work there every night." "Not anymore," Tae-suk said. The calm certainty in his voice made her stomach drop. "You don't get to decide that," she said, sharper than she intended. "I didn't ask to be part of your world." "No," he agreed. "But you entered it." She shook her head. "I walked a kid home. That's all." "For you," he said. "For others, it's leverage." Alara's hands clenched at her sides. "I need that job. I can replace it." "That's not the point," she snapped. "I don't want replacements. I want my life." Tae-suk studied her closely now. "Your life was already observed before tonight. You just didn't know it." That stopped her. What does that mean? She asked quietly. It means returning to routine will not make this disappear, he said. It will make it easier to predict. Alara felt a chill creep up her spine. So what are you saying? I am saying you should not go back there, he replied. Tonight or any night. She took a steadying breath. I can't just disappear. No, he said. But you can be protected. I didn't ask for protection. You didn't ask for danger either, he said evenly. Silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. From down the hall, Min-jae called. Father, the fish are awake. Tae-suk's gaze softened slightly. Just slightly. I'll walk you to the gate, he said. They moved back through the estate in silence. Alara's thoughts raced. Everything felt unreal. This place, this warning, the sense that a line had been crossed without her consent. At the gate, a car waited. You should consider what I said, Tae-suk told her. This is not a request. Alara met his eyes. It sounded like one. A pause. Be careful, he said instead. The words carried weight. Not a threat. Not reassurance. A warning. As the gate opened and the car pulled away, Alara looked back once at the fortress behind her, silent, watching, waiting. She didn't know it yet, but her life had already shifted. And the walls she'd just left behind were not meant to keep danger out. They were meant to keep it contained. Alara returned to her apartment just after midnight. The car dropped her a short distance from the building, the driver silent, polite, and unreadable. She watched the taillights disappear before turning toward the familiar structure that had been her refuge for years. The building looked the same as it always had, faded paint, narrow balconies, a single flickering light above the entrance that never stayed fixed for long. Normal. She held on to that word as she climbed the stairs. The hallway smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals and old concrete. Her footsteps echoed softly, too loud in the quiet. When she reached her door, she paused. Something felt off, though she couldn't say why. She checked her bag automatically, fingers brushing against her keys. She always locked her door. Always. The handle turned too easily. Alara froze. Her heart began to pound as she pushed the door open slowly. The apartment beyond was dark, but not still. The air felt disturbed, like a room that had been breathed in too deeply by someone else. Alara Whitmore, a voice said from inside. She gasped and stumbled back a step. A man stepped into the dim light from the hallway. He wore a dark suit, simple and clean, his expression calm. He held his hands where she could see them. Please don't scream, he said. I'm not here to hurt you. Her back hit the wall. Who are you? I work for Mr. Han, he replied. You were advised not to come here. Her anger flared, sharp and frightened. You don't get to break into my home. We didn't break in, he said evenly. Someone else did. That sent a cold wave through her chest. What do you mean? Your apartment is no longer secure, he said. You can't stay here tonight. She shook her head. This is my home. It was, he corrected gently. Please gather what you need. Alara stared at him, disbelief mixing with fear. She looked past him into her living space. Nothing seemed broken. No overturned furniture. No obvious signs of damage. That somehow made it worse. What was taken? She asked. Information, he said. Not objects. Her stomach dropped. I'm not going anywhere with you, she said. You don't have to trust me, he replied. But staying here is dangerous. Silence stretched. Alara closed her eyes for a moment, then nodded stiffly. She moved past him and into the apartment, her hands shaking as she grabbed a small bag and stuffed in essentials. Clothes, phone charger, wallet. She didn't look at anything too closely. She couldn't. The man waited patiently. When they left, he locked the door behind them. That was the last time Alara saw her apartment as hers. Morning came too quickly. Alara barely slept. When dawn broke, she slipped away from the place she'd been taken to, driven by panic and disbelief. She needed proof that this was all an overreaction, that her life was still waiting for her where she left it. She walked fast toward Silverline Cafe, her steps sharp against the pavement. When she turned the corner, she stopped short. Yellow police tape stretched across the cafe's entrance. The lights inside were off. The sign above the door was dark. No staff. No customers. Just silence. Alara rushed forward. What happened? She asked a nearby officer. He didn't look at her. Move along. I work here, she said urgently. What's going on? The officer finally met her eyes. His expression was distant, uninterested. It's closed. For how long? I don't know, he said. That's all I can tell you. She stood there for several seconds after he turned away, staring at the locked doors. The cafe that had paid her bills, fed her routines, grounded her nights gone. Just like that. Her phone buzzed. Her bank app. Alara frowned and opened it. Account restricted. She tried again. Same message. Her chest tightened. She hurried to the nearest ATM, sliding in her card with shaking hands. Transaction declined. No, she whispered. She called her bank. After a long wait, a tired voice finally answered. There's a temporary hold on your account, the woman said. Why? Alara demanded. I'm sorry. I can't disclose that. I have rent, Alara said. I have groceries. I understand, the woman replied, clearly not understanding at all. You'll be contacted. The line went dead. Alara stood on the sidewalk, phone pressed to her ear long after the call ended. Around her, the city moved as usual. People hurried past, laughed, complained, lived. Her life had just been erased. She checked her messages. Nothing from her landlord. When she tried calling him, the number no longer connected. Her hands began to shake. Apartment gone. Job gone. Money gone. No explanation. No warning. Alara sank onto a bench across from the cafe, staring at the dark windows. Everything felt fragile now, like glass that had already cracked but hadn't shattered yet. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Alara Whitmore, a calm voice said. You shouldn't have gone there. Her breath caught. What did you do? She whispered. What I warned you would happen, the voice replied. Your life is no longer separate from mine. Fear twisted through her, cold and heavy. You took everything, she said. No, he replied. Others did. I'm the one preventing more. She closed her eyes. Come now, the voice said. We need to talk. The call ended. Alara sat there for a long time, staring at the place where her old life used to exist. Then she stood up, because there was nothing left to return to. The gates opened before the car stopped. Alara noticed that first. The way steel parted smoothly, without delay, without question. It was as if the estate had been expecting her all along. She sat stiffly in the back seat, hands clenched together, her mind still spinning from the collapse of her life in a single morning. Closed cafe. Police tape. Frozen bank account. A home she could no longer enter. Everything she knew had been cut away with clean, efficient precision. The car moved forward, and the gates closed behind it. This time, Alara didn't marvel at the size of the estate or the silence that wrapped around it. Fear had burned away curiosity. What remained was a sharp, aching need for answers. The vehicle stopped beneath a wide overhang. A man opened her door and gestured inside without a word. She followed him. The interior felt colder than before, not in temperature but in tone. The lights were dimmer. The halls longer. Every footstep echoed softly, reminding her how alone she was in a place built for control. Han Tae-suk waited for her in a room with no windows. It was large and uncluttered. A long table sat at the center, its surface empty except for a single glass of water. Screens covered one wall, dark for now, like eyes that had chosen not to blink. Tae-suk stood at the far end, hands folded behind his back. Sit, he said. Alara did. She crossed her arms tightly, holding herself together. You said we needed to talk. Yes. You took my job, she said. My apartment. My money. I warned you, he replied evenly. That doesn't make it right. No, he agreed. But it makes it necessary. Her laugh was sharp and brittle. Necessary for what? For survival, he said. Silence stretched between them. You deserve the truth, Tae-suk continued. Not comfort. Not reassurance. Truth. He stepped forward slowly. I am not a businessman, he said. Not in the way the city understands that word. I control networks that do not appear on paper. Routes. Information. Influence. Alara's stomach twisted. You're a criminal, she said quietly. I am order, he replied, in a world that devours weakness. She stared at him. And Min Jae. His expression changed. Just slightly. My son is leverage, Tae-suk said. To my enemies. To my allies. To anyone who believes removing him will control me. Alara's chest tightened painfully. That's why they came for him. Yes. Then why let him walk alone? Tae-suk didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was lower. Because I believed control was enough. She didn't understand. He continued anyway. Min Jae's mother died 2 years ago, he said. An accident. The word sounded wrong. Too small. Alara leaned forward. Was it? No, he said flatly. Her breath caught. She was targeted, Tae-suk said. Because she was visible. Because she was human. Because she loved without fear. His jaw tightened. I thought walls and guards could protect them both. I was wrong. Elara swallowed hard. She thought of Min-jae's careful movements. His watchful eyes. His fear of being alone. He knows, she said. Tae-suk nodded once. Enough. The room felt heavier. You walking him home changed things, Tae-suk said. Not because you interfered, but because he trusted you. Elara frowned. That's a bad thing. In my world, he said, trust is a signal. It draws attention. Her pulse quickened. So now what? Now, he said, you are visible. The word struck like a blow. You stood between my son and armed men, Tae-suk continued. You refused to move. That made you a variable. I didn't do it for you, Elara said sharply. I did it for him. I know. Then why punish me? I am not punishing you, he said. I am responding to reality. He turned toward the dark screens behind him. One flickered to life briefly, data, images, maps, then went dark again. Your routine was predictable, he said. Predictability is vulnerability. The cafe. Your apartment. Your bank. All points of pressure. Her hands trembled. You erased my life. I removed access to you, he corrected. Before others did it violently. Elara stood abruptly. You don't get to decide that for me. Tae-suk met her anger calmly. I do when it involves my son. Her chest rose and fell quickly. Then what do you want? He didn't hesitate. You have two options, he said. Protection or disappearance. The words echoed in her ears. Protection means staying under my authority, he continued. Security. Resources. Safety. And disappearance. A new identity, he said. Money. Distance. A life no one can trace back to tonight. Elara stared at him. And Min-jae? Tae-suk said nothing. Her answer came instantly. No. He studied her carefully. You didn't let me finish. I don't need to, she said. You're offering me safety if I abandon him. That is one way to describe it. She shook her head. I won't do that. You would be free, he said. Alive. And he'd be alone, she replied. Again, silence pressed in. You are asking me to choose myself, she continued. I won't. Tae-suk's gaze sharpened. You don't understand the risk. I do, Elara said. I just don't accept it at his expense. Something shifted in his expression then. Surprise. Respect. Maybe something closer to disbelief. You would stay, he said slowly, knowing what I am. Yes. Knowing what this world does to people. Yes. Knowing you may never get your old life back. She nodded. It was already gone the moment I said yes to him. The room fell quiet. You are making this difficult, Tae-suk said. Elara met his eyes. So did he. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Tae-suk exhaled slowly. Very well. Her heart pounded. What does that mean? It means, he said, you remain under my protection. Not because you are helpless, but because you chose not to be cruel. Elara sank back into the chair, her strength suddenly gone. You will not leave the compound without permission, he added. You will not be unguarded. And you will understand that danger does not negotiate. She nodded. As long as he's safe. Tae-suk paused, then said quietly, you already made him safer. Elara closed her eyes. She didn't know what the future held. She only knew one thing. She had been offered escape. And she had chosen to stay. Elara woke up in a room that did not feel like hers. The bed was too wide. The sheets were too smooth. The silence pressed in from every side, thick and watchful. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory returned all at once. The compound, the gates, the truth she had been given, the choice she had made. She sat up slowly and rubbed her face. She had stayed. A soft knock came at the door. Elara, a small voice called. Her heart shifted immediately. Yes. The door opened just enough for Min-jae to peek in. His hair was slightly messy, his expression cautious, like he wasn't sure she would still be there. You didn't leave, he said. She smiled gently. No, I didn't. Relief flooded his face. He opened the door fully and stepped inside, holding a book against his chest. Good, he said simply. That single word made the weight of her decision feel real. The days that followed settled into a strange new rhythm. Elara learned the layout of the compound slowly. Which hallways echoed. Which ones absorbed sound. Which doors were never opened. She learned where the cameras were without being told. She learned that silence here meant safety, not emptiness. Min-jae moved through it all with ease. After breakfast each morning, he sat at a long table with his books neatly arranged. Tutors came and went, polite and distant, but it was Alara he looked at when he didn't understand something. "How do you do this part?" he asked one afternoon, pointing at a page filled with numbers. She leaned over his shoulder. "Let's take it step by step." He nodded and followed closely, his brow furrowed in concentration. When he solved the problem correctly, his face lit up. "I did it," he said. "You did," she replied, smiling. He started waiting for her at the table every day after that. She helped him with reading, math, and writing. They built routines together, homework first, then a short break, then quiet time. Small rules, gentle structure, things that made the world feel predictable again. At night, things were harder. The first time she heard it, Alara woke to the sound of muffled crying. She followed the sound down the hallway and found Min-jae sitting upright in bed, his hands gripping the blanket, his breathing uneven. "Alara," he whispered when he saw her. "I'm here," she said immediately, sitting beside him. "They took you," he said, his voice shaking. "I couldn't find you." Her chest tightened. She gathered him gently into her arms. He was light, all sharp edges and tension, like a child who had learned to stay small. "I'm right here," she said softly. "You're safe." He pressed his face into her shoulder and cried quietly. No loud sobs, just silent tears and shaking breaths. After that night, it happened often. Sometimes he woke from dreams where doors wouldn't open. Sometimes from dreams where footsteps followed him and never stopped. Sometimes he couldn't explain it at all, just fear, raw and lingering. Alara stayed every time. She held his hand until his breathing slowed. She whispered reassurances until his body relaxed again. She never rushed him back to sleep. "You don't have to be brave here," she told him once. "You already are." Slowly, the nightmares began to change. They came less often. They didn't last as long. Min-jae began to sleep deeper. During the day, he started to laugh again. Small laughs at first, careful ones, like he wasn't sure they were allowed. Then louder ones. Real ones. He began drawing too. At first, his pictures were stiff. Thick walls. Tall gates. Guards with no faces. Himself small in the center. Alara never commented. She just sat with him. One afternoon, he added something new. A figure beside him. Curly hair. A soft smile. "That's you," he said, not looking up. Her throat tightened. "I thought so." Across the room, Han Tae-suk watched. He never interrupted. Never commented. He stood at a distance, leaning against doorways or watching from the far side of the room. Always quiet. Always observing. He saw how Min-jae followed Alara with his eyes. How he relaxed when she entered a room. How his shoulders lowered when she spoke. He saw trust forming where fear had lived. One evening, as Min-jae worked on his homework, Tae-suk spoke quietly to Alara. "He doesn't trust easily," he said. She nodded. "I know. He used to," Tae-suk continued. "Before." Alara didn't ask before what. "He talks more now," he said. "Asks questions. Sleeps longer." "He's still scared," she replied. "But he doesn't feel alone." Tae-suk said nothing, but his gaze remained on his son. That night, Min-jae finished his homework and climbed onto the couch beside Alara. "Are you staying tomorrow?" he asked casually. "Yes." "And the next day?" "Yes." He leaned against her arm, satisfied. "Okay," he said. That word again. "Okay." The compound did not feel like a prison anymore. It felt like a place learning how to breathe. Alara knew she had crossed into a life she could never fully understand. She knew danger still existed beyond the walls. But she also knew this. Every day she stayed, Min-jae felt safer. And every night he slept without fear, something inside the fortress shifted. Not the walls, but the people within them. The family was beginning to form. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories.